Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Monday Win by Noon webinar. I am Todd Bookspan, the co-host and the founder of Win by Noon. And if I could just tell you how excited I am right now, you know me, I'm kind of a level-headed guy, but I'm more excited for this conversation than I've been excited for anything in a long time. But before we introduce our special guest, I of course have to introduce my co-host, none other than Deborah Bird from Plug and Play SN. How are you, Deborah?
I have known that you have been so excited about this, which makes me giddy and excited. It's like, I don't know where the man crush falls into place or when that all started, but Bill, that is no joke. He has been giddy and excited ever since you confirmed on Facebook. And look, all you had to do was ask and you shall receive.
Pretty much how that works. And I feel the same way. How fun to be hanging out with you and Todd today. Are you guys kidding me? Come on.
Well, that's it. So let me do a proper introduction, because Bill's not going to send us a bio and have us read it or anything like that. But I'll tell you where the respect and admiration and love comes from is that when I got in the mortgage business almost 23 years ago, and I stumbled into an interview with Daniel Harkavy, the CEO and founder of Building Champions, where he talked about get out of the backseat and drive, and it really gave me this idea that I should have a business coach. And so I interviewed a couple of different organizations. And when I called Building Champions, they let me know that they had a coach named Bill Hart who, oh my gosh, had one spot available. And if Bill selected me, that I might have that opportunity. So let me just lay it up. I was really fortunate enough to have Bill as my coach for 4 years. And at that time in my career, I always said that Bill, not only to make me a great loan officer, right? I went on to close, over 500 loans a year for a decade and won all sorts of awards and accolades, but really Bill made me a better human as well. I felt like I got so much out of it. I'm a better person. I'm a better father. I'm a better spouse. I'm a better friend, everything all because of the man who is here. And then I was really even more blessed to coach alongside of him for a number of years at Building Champions before he and I both went different directions. But I think all of you who are here, you're here to see someone that is an industry legend. And he recently went out of the public coaching sector. I guess I can say into the private coaching sector. I'm still a coach. So here's my good friend and mentor, Coach Bill Hart.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, I love that intro. If you had attempted to read a Coach Bill Hart intro, that would have been horrifying. So thank you for that. Yeah, I think you might have been my second client.
I love that. There was definitely a good sales team at Building Champions at the time then,
Right. Well, he's got one client, but he has room for one more. Then he'll have room for one more, and then another 23 more.
Well,
yeah,
look where we all are today, right? 2 decades later, and
absolutely.
I think having a real impact on the industry. And then I probably should also say that you are as a not only on an influence from a personal perspective, but also a philosophy perspective, right? Your by noon effect, which is something that you've now taught hundreds, if not times more than that, is certainly something that's been a big influence on me, especially since I wear a badge now that says Win by Noon.
Well, you took a good idea and turned it into something really transformational. All I was observing is, and this is as good a place to start as any, probably you guys, is having been involved with the Masters coach for so many years with Building Champions, which was kind of our best of our best. And Todd, you were a member before you were a coach there. I just began to notice that there is this theme of the most effective people got the most important things done by noon, and most of them got more done by noon than most people did all day. So I just sort of had a very simple little pyramid structure, about things that you could do. And man, you took that and just did that little tiny grain mustard seed of an idea and turned it into a plantation. So well done, man. And I love that you have.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. And so my favorite one of that was the day before vacation miracle, right? I mean, and it was one of the pieces on that pyramid. And the fact that we all know it, right? The day before vacation, we can get all those things that have been on a to-do list done for weeks. They've been on there, and we finally get them done because we know we better get them done before we, clock off at 5 o'clock today.
You bet. And giving credit where credit is due, that was a Gary Keller idea, right? That was out of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. So yeah, I mean, look, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just how we arrange it and deploy it. And, I think that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. I think if you're a loan originator, if you're a realtor, and we're what do we have, 100 days left in the year, something like that, at this time. Deb, you're going to be fast on that. Just look that up real quick.
I
I'll
say
bet we've got-
91, actually.
How many?
I actually have it written down. It's 91.
91 days. Okay, so
Yeah.
we have 91 days. Wow. What if you had a planner, I don't know, a 90-day planner that allowed you to structure, much like that. Yeah, that allowed you to structure your quarter, your months, your weeks, and your days in such a way that you could tee up those non-negotiable disciplines, the things you guys know how to do. You don't need any of us to tell you what to do. There might be a cool little new idea, like Deborah more than likely is going to come up with something cool and new that you probably haven't heard before, because that's her space. But you know what? Todd and I are just going to revisit the basics because it's what we know and it's the stuff that we know works. So here's the encouragement to you. If you don't already have a planner, like, do that now. And if you're a loan originator, buy a box for your realtor partners, right? The people that you want to help with and contribute to, because there's a great version for them as well. Todd, I talk about this all the time so that it doesn't sound like I'm just totally sucking up to the host here. I want you guys to know I do this all the time. That planner to me, I mean, full disclosure, I'm a full focus guy, right? So I use Mike Hyatt's planner, but it is so similar in so many ways. Like he's abundantly obvious about this. He says, I just plagiarized from everybody. So it's got your big three, right? It's a quarterly planner. I just physically, this just works for me and it's kind of become a habit. But man, the Win by Noon planner, you guys, if you don't have something like this in your life, if you're an Outlook user, I don't know where you go with this, Todd, but if you're an Outlook user and it's like, yeah, I've got everything in Outlook, I'm just going to say to you, you need to try this for 90 days to have the tactile reaction, right, of being able to structure your day. Like literally, that's my Monday. That's, it's pretty clear what needs to happen to me today, instead of what most people do. And I'm just totally jumping on your world here, but it's what I believe. Instead of just jumping into the day and just kind of seeing what happens, like that's not what the best of the best do. So anyway, that's my shameless plug to grab a planner. We'll talk a little bit more about some training that I know you guys have to offer as well, but that, man, just jump into the planner, like make that happen right away.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I showed Todd my planner, and this was, I think it must have been when you launched at Sales Mastery, which is kind of where I met, both of you. And I pulled out that old planner, the very first one, and I went back, and it's nice to just see the journey too, like how I once thought. And that was, a couple years after I'd been originating, but coming from the teacher world, I mean, this was all new to me. They don't have these types of conversations, which is ironic. They should be.
For educators.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, it's like in IT's Todd, I want to create a Win by Noon edition for kids. And I've got 4 of them. We could test them on, but
right on.
Let's do it.
The school gives them a planner, but it's not the same. I mean, it's just, it's what you have to do for each class, but it's not being proactive. And it's really helped me rewire my brain on how to be more proactive and own the day, so the day doesn't own you. So everyone knows I'm a big fan.
Well, it's the truth. So Todd, I mean, like, this is your world, and it has been for how many years now, by the way? When did this launch?
It's crossed our 5-year anniversary, if you can believe it.
I can't believe it. That's a pretty big deal. And I remember the early conversations. So anyway, I don't want to overdo that stuff, because if I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, this is cool that you all have a love fest. But what I'm really here for is like, I want to know what's going to help me right now. And so this is number one, order your planner, and preferably order a bunch so that you've got gifts as well, because this is the one thing that I can tell you unequivocally as a coach will have an impact on your life. You just have to commit to it. Just say, I'm just going to do it for 90 days. Approach it like an AA meeting. Like, okay, I'm just going to do this today. I'm just going to do this one day. And then you do it tomorrow, right? Like maybe we need 12 steps here, you guys. I don't know. What do you think?
Probably. But I think one of the things that you've always done, and part of, what we all need a coach for sometimes, is to tell us the hard truth, right? And it always comes from the heart and from a place of love. But I think that's one of the things that, you've continued to do. You continue to be the person who puts out great content online that I think is what people don't want to hear, but they need to hear it. And then they all come on and they just watch you over and over again. And, I just saw you talk about leadership and how leaders need to step up their game right now. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, that's all I coach now. So when I made the move to movement almost a year and a half ago, it was as national leadership coach, meaning I'm coaching the president of the company, the divisionals, the regionals, a lot of our ops leadership. So that my whole client structure now, they're just leaders. So they're all people with direct reports. And, if we're really honest about this industry for the last couple of years, 2020, 21, you just had to not screw up, if we're honest. And now it's time to get people to look squarely into these conversations about what really needs to happen. I had a conversation with a physical therapist the other day, a guy that's working on my shoulder. I've got a torn rotator cuff, but I'm determined not to have surgery. So anyway, he's working on my shoulder. And we were having this conversation about his team and so forth. And he says, yeah, I really need to get them motivated. And I said, oh, dude, I got bad news for you. You can't motivate them. You can't. You can create an environment where they can get motivated, right? But you're not going to be able to motivate them. Like, that's just not going to happen. And motivational speakers will tell you that too. That's not ultimately what's happening there. They're teeing up ideas that allow you to connect the dots and where you are in terms of what you want to do. So anyway, with leaders right now, to me, the main thing is to get quiet, listen, find out what people really need, what their fears are, what they really want to do. Todd, something you and I both learned to do because Daniel Harkavy taught it, was by starting first, and I know you still talk about this, but by starting first with getting clear about what you want, right? You and I were taught, and you did it yourself, as did I, a life plan, so that you have a sense of, that's where I'm going to go. Our mutual friend, Josh Metal, said years ago, you might remember this in the video. He said, it's like I take this anchor and I toss it out into this idealized future, and it kind of sticks out there. You're like Bear Grylls, right? So what I want you to do is throw that out. That's an Aussie accent. That's not going to work. Anyway, we're doing this, right? Every day we're pulling closer to that idealized future. So even if you don't do an actual life plan, if you're a leader and you can start getting your people to just look 90 days out, like get them to look at the holidays, have them have a really cold reality look at the holidays. What's that going to look like? Because the activities you're involved in right now, if you're a leader, the activities you're involved in right now are going to create that holiday, right? For those people, those things that they're doing. And conversely, they're going to now start looking at Q1 of 2023. What's that going to look like? So anyway, my message to leaders is always the same right now. And it's just listen to your people, find out what they want, help them, because most people don't really know what they want, help them to figure that out, and then create a lane that keeps them in those activities, hold them accountable, or have a coach or someone that can help them to kind of stay in that lane. But that's my message to leaders right now.
The problem with accountability is nobody wants it, right? But everyone needs it. And so how do you encourage a leader to get those who say they want in, but aren't really having the actions to follow up?
Yeah. Such a great question, man. And you know this because you and I did it together in coaching, and you've now done it with others, but it so helps. And Deborah, you'll be able to resonate with this as well. If I know about your kids, Deborah, so let's talk about you right now. How many did you say? 4?
4.
Meaningful pause. That's all that was. Like, wow. Okay. So anyway, so 4 kids, a girl with 4 kids, if I could connect the dots, if you worked for me and I could connect the dots between what matters to you with your children, your involvement, your background as a teacher, as an educator, you are incredibly involved in the lives of your kids. I know that to be true. Anything that I do that pulls you away from that is going to create some animosity. So what I want to do is learn more about what it is that you want, maybe even help you create a cooler vision of what that could be. And then let's figure out how to make sure that, look, if you were making this many calls, creating this many videos, giving this many presentations, conducting this many webinars in this contracted period of time, let's look at the impact that that'll have, because you need to be available at 2:30 in the afternoon to be picking up kids, throwing them in the back of the SUV. How am I doing so far?
Perfect.
Right? Taking them
Yeah.
to the games and practice. And
Mhm.
so here's what you and I know, Todd. One of the things that I think you were in TMC at the time when Mark Raskin, so if he's on the line right now, I hope he's hanging out with us, with Prime Lending in Dallas, one of Prime's top producers. His wife had back surgery. Do you remember this story? You may or may not have been around.
I don't remember it.
This is actually when he said to me, the whole by noon thing was just theory until my wife, Lisa, had back surgery. I think she had scoliosis. She had a pretty serious back surgery. And he said, I had no choice. It was the opposite for him. He was home in the morning and then he went to work in the afternoon. So he had to figure out how to work in 3 or 4 hours a day. I'll bet a lot of people that are on right now understand this because they've had those seasons where somebody's sick, they're a caregiver, kids, something happened, and you could only work in a very limited period of time. Todd, I know you've had clients like this. I'll bet I've had a dozen clients over the years that tell me in all honesty, dude, if I worked 20 hours a week, I'd be amazed. But they made $500,000 or $700,000 because they built a team, they built a system, and all of that happened around them instead of them being in charge of every single physical file and every contact that happens with that. They figured out how to stay in their sweet spot. So to answer your question directly, if I'm coaching Deborah, I would be holding her to the vision of the kids. Like, I want a picture of your kids by your monitor, like put it right over there by the side, because every time you drift off into swiping distraction world and you're not making calls, you're not prospecting, you're not following up with DVDs, you're not doing the things you said you were going to do, you're taking food out of the mouths of the kids. Like, come on. But maybe it's not the kids. Maybe it's somebody who wants to go to Italy for a month next year. Like, this is a big deal for them and they really want to make this happen, or they want to start buying some investment property and creating some passive income. So in my mind as a coach, the thing that I've learned, you guys, is I can hold you accountable to skill and execution. But when skill and execution is connected to your heart and your head, it's so much more effective. It's not my idea, then it's yours.
So how hard is it, Bill? And maybe this is just very normal, but and this is speaking off experience with what I do now. Sometimes what people tell me what they want is not really what they want. It's something that they've heard maybe from another top producer or their manager, and they project that onto themselves and they think this is the goals that I'm supposed to have, or these are things I'm supposed to get X, Y, and Z. So how do you dig deeper and really hit that vein and follow it to the heart where you can really tap into, forget all of what everybody else is doing and what they have and what they want?
Yeah.
What is it that you really want?
Yeah, for sure. So I would suggest that that's nearly all the time. I think back, but we talked about 18,000 hours in the coach's chair because I started this in 2003, and all I've done is coach loan originators and a few top producing realtors, right? Like, this has been my world. You know this, Todd, when we were involved with Chick-fil-A and Daimler and whatever, I was the mortgage guy. I was always the mortgage guy. So I just sort of stayed here. I don't think most people over the 20 years when I was coaching, like publicly, really had any idea of what they wanted. I think the default is, for a loan originator, it's, I want to do 100 million. Like, whatever, that is a completely, right? Yeah. It's a completely made up number. It means nothing. Let's get down to what you want from your life. I was just talking to a client today, Todd, you'll appreciate this, when we were talking about life planning, and I still use the Building Champions life planning tool because I don't think there's anything better. And I was just asking him so this is answering your question, Deborah, to begin to future his thinking 3, 5, 10 years out. What do you want it to look like? His kids are young right now. It's busy, very much like your life right now, Deborah. Todd, you understand now when the kids are out, life is very different. I understand when the kids and the grandkids are out, life is very different. But if we are deliberate about building a life that we want, that's the thing that helps people to really understand what they want. But who's going to get quiet and figure that out on their own when they're busy reacting to the craziness of a changing market. So I believe it's our job. It's incumbent upon us to get in front of that. An easy tool for this, you guys, here comes old school arrow number 35 out of my quiver. And it's the FORD acronym: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. If you have nothing else, go to that conversation in any order, by the way. I mean, I probably wouldn't start with dreams, but you don't have to start with family. You don't have to start with occupation or recreation, but it's a great framework to get to know somebody. I cannot tell you how many leaders I've coached over the years that when I ask them, well, tell me more about that person. Are they married? I don't know. She's worked for me for 6 years. I don't know. What? It's like a Looney Tunes cartoon reaction. What? You need to know how long they've been married, when their anniversary is, the ages of their kids, like the health of the dog. Like, you need to know this stuff. And so I think we've been so busy the past couple of years, you guys, in a capacity market. I mean, that's how I described 2020, 2021, even 2019. It was like those clear lucite phone booths, the cash booths with the fan in the bottom, and they throw a bunch of $100 bills in there and you have to grab as many as you can. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it was easy money, but it was easier, right? It was easier. And right now, I think we've got to get people connected to the stuff that matters, so that the activities that will create the results are connected to something that means something to them. So Ford is probably the easiest example I can give anybody to begin to figure out what's important to people.
Yeah, I just love that. And I always say, if not all spells, go to Facebook and at least learn a little bit about them before, you're telling that Mark Raskin story. In my head, I'm saying Lisa's wife. And I just know it because I know her because I've met her a lot.
Love it.
At all those things, but I'm like, all right, but it's also that whole Facebook connection. So you have a little stalking, but I think you got to listen to Coach Bill. You got to ask those questions, especially for those around you. I'm always shocked by leaders who haven't done a good job by that, but I'm also not surprised when I say that, because I do feel that everyone's been just so busy. I hate to use the word busy, but you kind of nailed it before. I mean, we do know a lot of people in this business who truly do work 20 hours a week, and the other 20 hours they're pretending that they're working and doing great. If they just had a little bit more structure and discipline around that, just how much better life would be.
Yeah, one of the things I used to talk about, Todd, I don't know if I developed this after you and I were coaching, but I used to always have my clients write this down. So write this down. 3 words: on my terms. On my terms. And what I mean by that is, I think you've got to figure out what your terms are, Deborah. If I was even close to what a young mom's schedule is like right now, those are your terms. You've got to be clear in the afternoon, which probably means you're waking up very early, working out very early. How am I doing?
Right on.
Yeah. I mean, that's what has to happen. Those are your terms. Todd, you have different terms. You're at a different season in life. And, everybody's going to have slightly different terms, but I think when you challenged me on the goal setting, in the same way, I think people make assumptions about what their days should look like. And I'm just here to tell you, let me mention Josh again, because Josh was just such a great example about this. I talk about him in my book, compare him to a Navy SEAL. He's like the mortgage industry's version of a Navy SEAL. Am I right, Todd?
And we should point that out. We both have, over the other shoulder, we both have your book over our shoulder. So White Collar Warrior, if you haven't read it, add that to the to-do list. But keep going with your Josh story.
Grab a copy. Well, here was the thing. When I got a hold of Josh, when I was coaching him, I mean, he was already doing really well. He had a great reputation in his market in Salt Lake City. He was working with a lot of realtors at the time, already had rental properties, but what he's built is unbelievable. One day in a coaching session, he said to me, he brought it up. I'd love to take credit for it. It was his question. He said, "Hey, coach, I think I want to figure out what kind of loans are my favorite to do and most profitable." And he landed on medical professionals. And so he wrote a book called
How to Get a Medical Profession Loan or something like that.
It's pretty close. Yeah. It's right over here somewhere. I could come up with it. but it was all about just the stories of what he's learned about working with physicians. Some of the stuff he did in the very beginning didn't work out. It was just he had hired a guy to work locally to like tour people that were coming in straight out of medical school. I don't know if you remember all this, Todd. Tour their local. They bought a black Escalade. Like one guy was in charge of that. That never worked out. What did work out is he bought URLs for every state in the union for physician home loans. And so it was like UT Physician Home Loans, AZ physicianhomeloans.com. And he began to aggregate this lead system because he became an expert. To me, that's the lesson. You look at somebody like Josh Metal, who at the time when I was coaching him was waking up, I think at 3:30 in the morning. And for the record, that's before Jocko. Like that's crazy early, but it's because he said, I'm paraphrasing it, but he basically said, I am prepared to live like no one else so that I can live like no one else. And if you remember when he took that 90-day sabbatical, Todd, and he took his family to Thailand and Cambodia, he tells a story, and this one will hit your heart, Deborah. His wife, Hillary, had been telling him, dude, you're getting home after the kids are going to bed because they were little. Like, this is not good. And so we just came up with an action plan. And that is, I want you to put in Outlook when you leave. And he typed in, I think it was 6 p.m. Dinner is on the table. Go home. Adios, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I think those are the actual words. And it was repeating every day. And then I asked him to send me a screenshot so that I could see it. He began to do that. But what was happening was his daughter was so young that they didn't have a real strong connection. And Todd, you were there, I think, when he told this story in Arizona. He said, so my baby girl, after about 30 days on this sabbatical, when we're sitting on the beach, she takes my face in her hands and she says, Daddy, you're my love daddy. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Gives me chills.
This was
Gives me chills.
Right? And this was the same daughter who didn't have a connection with him because he was working too many hours. So if that's you in a market like this, don't buy the lie that you have to work 24/7. That's nonsense. You do not. You have to work effectively in the hours that you choose on your terms. But you got to lean in. Like, don't misread what I'm saying to you. You're going to have to work hard. You just don't have to work all the hours. You don't. Because what is success if you lose that relationship with a spouse or a child or a carotid artery blows? Come on. Have it on your terms.
Well, I remember, I think it was when we were in Houston, and I had a 3, 2, 1-year-old, and I was due in 30 days with my 4th. And, doctors told me I would never be able to have kids. We were trying not to have children. I won't go through all of those lessons, but I think that was God's way of giving me 4 and 5.5 years so I would let go of control.
Nice.
But I remember being on the delivery table taking a prequel, and I was like, this is bad. I'm literally taking calls, hitting mute, moving the contraction monitor. And granted, I was kind of a pro by that time, but I'm thinking to myself, this is not normal. And no matter how much I was comparing myself to my identical twin who was in Dallas at the time and trying to hijack, like she had already been in the industry for about 11, 12 years.
Yeah.
Well, maybe 8 years, actually 8 to 10 years. And I thought, how am I going to catch up? And it's that competitiveness that was deeply rooted. And
you bet.
Anyway, so I remember sitting there on the delivery table and I thought, I'm driving back and forth to Dallas, doing 21-hour trips, pumping and driving with a newborn on my back. That's like 5 days old, going to meet with real estate agents. Cause I was the breadwinner and we had just moved to Houston and I didn't know anybody and I barely knew how to do loans, but I thought I got to keep going and I got to do this all. And I wasn't letting go of control until finally that moment I was like, you know what, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of life is this? My newborn, which I'll never get this time back. I'm literally,
for sure,
pushing mute and trying to hide the fact that I just had a baby in fear of agents not wanting to work with me, or being labeled as the mom with so many kids. How in the world could you do what someone else could do? Because aren't you so busy?
absolutely.
Yeah. Learn that the hard way.
So for that story, if that story resonates with you, if you're watching us, if you're listening to this right now, Man, I want to encourage you to make sure that you sign up for the what's it called, you guys? Operating System 2.0 operating system.
Operating system 2.0.
W
You all need a new operating system.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because of this. Look, if I coached you, or if I knew that you had a coach who had this experience and knew that these are the things that you needed to be focused on, you're in great shape. And so if you already do, I'm trusting that you are. But you know what? If you're blowing in the wind a little bit out there right now and you're just not entirely sure and you're kind of waiting for the old market to come back, the old market's not going to come back. Like 5 to 6%, get used to it. These are great rates. These are fantastic rates. We have an unbelievable opportunity in front of us, but you need to be on a track. And the beautiful thing about what Todd has created here in Deborah, I don't know if you've had a hand in this or not, but you know, what I know for sure is this is a track, because I went and looked at it last night. Thank you for sharing it. It's a track that if you'll commit to that, you'll get fantastic results. You'll be the person that will be writing a testimonial 90 days from now saying, you know, I had been averaging 6 units a month, and then I was averaging 1 unit a month in this new market, and now I'm creating leads that are converting at such a rate that now I'm projecting whatever. That's what you need to do, you guys. And the last thing that I'll say to you about just sort of my philosophy on this is, if I could see your bank account and what it is that we used to say checkbook, right? But if I could log into your bank account and see where you're spending money, go to your Mint account, I would be able to make some predictions about your future if you're a realtor or if you're a loan originator. And like, this is not a time to be buying watches, purses, cars. This is a time to be planting seeds. And the way to plant seeds is by investing in your career. So if you've purchased a planner, if you've purchased a program, the operating system program, and you're committed to that, that's money well spent. Because right now, if you know anything about the law of the harvest, now is not the time to harvest. That's not what this season is. This season is all about planting seeds, and we all need to be investing, every one of us. I just spent $700 last night on a storytelling program by Bo Eason, which is all online. Good for Bo, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's all online. It's just a bunch of video, and it's fantastic, and it's worth every penny. And I mean, I spent it. I'm not expensing it. So I want you guys to really think about right now. You are face to face with Todd and his program. And if your social media game is lacking, and oh, by the way, it is, then you need to reach out to Deborah, because what I know about what she's done with Plug and Play SM is you have a structure. She has a framework. I just saw that calendar that you put out. I love that you're helping people to understand a framework for how to show up in a meaningful way on social. Because look, I'm going to tell you this, you guys, I may have the gray hair, but the thing that changed my game as a coach was social media. I didn't know what I was doing. I've told you this before, Deborah. I still don't really know what I'm doing. I just kind of throw a lot of stuff out there, right? It's what I do. And yet it's helped me to create a brand that has created a value that has been fantastic. And it's all because of social. So invest in yourself. You've got 2 places right now where you can spend money. Can't spend money with me. Well, you could buy the book, I suppose. Buy the book.
Exactly. Buy the book. Buy the book.
Matter of fact, buy a case of books.
For WB, it's just WBN, for Win by Noon Operating System.com. I appreciate your kind words on that. It's funny because you mentioned Josh. I actually talked to Josh yesterday. Nice. And he and Aria were running to the store. So we just talked for just a minute. He wanted to call me. We're both going to be speaking at an event next week. And ironically, I follow him on stage. And so we were just coordinating what, you know, we have similar visions of what we talk about. And he's like, I really think you need to talk to people about what happens if rates go to 7. Like, what are the disciplines that they need to have? What is it they need to be doing? And he really said, you know, something I think that we all, you know, you kind of hinted at it before. You have he said there's 2 types of loan officers: those that don't have business and have a lot of fear right now. And, you know, certainly super sympathetic for anyone who doesn't have a plan of attack to grow their business right now. I think that's really important. And so that needs to be spoken to. And then he said there's the other group that are kind of just fat and happy, right? They still have a lot of money from last year when they were in that cash machine that you talked about, you know, wheeling around the wheelbarrow and catching money as it was falling from the sky. And that it just hasn't clicked to those folks yet that they actually need to get busy and start thinking about the next 90 days and thinking about 2023. Yeah. And so, you know, when we're having this conversation, to me, it's just so relevant about where, you know, I think that thought leaders, anytime that I see other people that I respect, you know, saying, you know, parallel things to what I'm saying. So I saw your video about leadership and, you know, that people need to be held accountable and have these disciplines. Josh is saying it. You know, I know Deborah talks about it all the time with their social media clients. So, you know, it's just such a relevant conversation because ultimately in the end, you know, it is a harder market. I mean, the facts are the facts, right? The data speaks. Lowest applications we've seen in over 2 decades. For sure. And the question is that there's still people out there growing. So what do you have to do to do it?
So let me just speak to that
I
for
would
a second.
say,
Sorry, Deborah, go ahead. No, finish your thought. I would say
the way to trump that fear, and this is where just in conversations that I have with the loan officers that I serve, if you're not tracking your numbers and maybe you've reached success, you have no idea how you got there. And so subconsciously, you may be telling yourself a story deep down of maybe I just got lucky. Maybe it was just because the interest rates were low, because you don't know what are those daily reps you need to do in order to achieve the same level of production that maybe you did last year, but it may take twice as many phone calls, twice as many agent partners meetings. And I know, Bill, I used to have the visual on my monitor, but you had a graphic that had 12 different pillars of all these different, you know, highways, so to speak, to your business. And I will tell you, the loan officers who chose to implement the weekly plan that win by noon, whether you're a real estate agent or loan officer, you would have had no gaps in your business because the planner makes sure that when you have theme days that you are making your database calls, that you are touching your agent partners, that you're doing annual asset reviews. And so there's certain human truths. And I know this is probably weird because I speak on behalf of social media and there's different trends and algorithms, but I will say no matter what, the human truths remain the same no matter the market. And Bill, I heard your video about how you've been through 8 different cycles. And I would probably bet that those same activities, if you had just committed to doing that ideal week after week by noon, you wouldn't be in the position of, oh, we were so busy last year. Well, no, you chose to neglect your purchase business and you neglected your let's just take some responsibility for what it was. You chose to take this, which cost you this, and now you're paying for it right with your purchase business. So that's why it's so important to have that ideal week and theme your days and commit to doing those so you don't leave one spigot of the wheel out of whack because you're overcompensating in one area to reach success when you're going to end up like what you could be in right now.
So a couple thoughts responding to that. One is I don't know anybody better at tracking their numbers than Todd Bookspan. Todd in the day could tell you lead conversion rates, where his leads were coming from. In a market like this, you would be doing exactly what Deborah just described. And you'd be looking at diversifying your lead sources because that's what we have to do, right? I either need more realtors or I need more sources. I need other places to create leads. So that all has to happen in a market like this. The good news is you come out on the other end so much better off, right? So much better off because you've built this infrastructure. But the thing that I was going to just share is, you know, I think about the Josh Mettles and the Dan Kellers and your sister, for goodness sakes. I mean, so many people that just create amazing results that are highly visible that people know about. And I think it's easy to assume that, you know, there's something really special about them. They're just more likable than me. They're better looking than me. They're more knowledgeable than I am. Well, you can fix all of that stuff except maybe better looking. Like, you know, you might have to just go through your career as the dog-faced person, but whatever. There's a few of those that have been really very successful as well. So here's the story I want to share. You know, in my book, White Collar Warrior, I interviewed Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, a Top Gun instructor, and you began to see the parallels of what are the best of the best that the American military puts out there at the leading edge of the spear. And what's the best of the best in other people that are just highly effective and efficient in what they do. So I mentioned I invested in this Bo Eason program last night. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's worth following. Played football. He was the greatest safety apparently of all time, at least in the year that he won that award. played football with Jerry Rice. And he tells this story about Jerry Rice, who has more home runs than any bit home runs. Those are probably going to be touchdowns in football.
Wrong sport, yes.
Yeah. Than anybody in history. So Emmitt Smith has 175. Jerry Rice has 208. 208.
Wow.
So Bo Eason is telling this story about in practice, the quarterback is throwing to wide receivers who are running specified patterns, catching the ball and kind of trotting back to the quarterback and then throwing the ball back. And Bo's watching Jerry Rice, who is running flat out perfect patterns. And no matter where he catches the ball, this is practice, remember, he's running into the end zone. He's running into the end zone. And so Bo said, so Jerry, like, what are you doing when you do that? I see you like he's running down the sidelines, right, on his tiptoes. What is up with that? And he said, because every time these hands touch a ball, I want my body to end up in the end zone. How fantastic a story is that? Every time my hands touch the ball, I'm training my body that it needs to end up in the end zone. So you guys, what if we took that approach in a market like we're in right now, instead of just taking sort of a casual approach, which is easy to do because we were trained that way the last few years, like, I just have to show up like people call. This business is easy. Yeah. 3.5. No, yeah, that'll be great. I'll send you an app. Super. You're like, come on, give me a break. We are in a completely different place. So Todd and Deborah, here's what we know. There are some people right now that know people in the industry, both realtors and loan originators, who are not going to be here in January. They're not going to be here in January because they have decided that they don't want to do the work. The people that are on this call right now or listening to it later, you've demonstrated just by being here, just prioritizing this time, that that's not who you are. But what you need is somebody to speak truth to you. What you need is somebody who's been around 8 market downturns, somebody who's got gray hair, who has coached an awful lot of people and would just say to you in truth, if you were my nephew, if you were my niece, I would say to you, stop watching, stop watching, stop watching, stop watching the news, stop watching Netflix, stop watching Prime, Hulu, just quit it. Give it up for 90 days. I'm not kidding you. Give you maybe a little something on the weekend to be with the family. But the rest of the time, you need to be on the Mortgage Coach Mastermind community Facebook page, YouTube page, getting everything that you can via Todd and Deborah right now. Invest in your craft. Start to think like Jerry Rice so that you can now begin to think, I need to be thinking about every single lead. I want to get them into the end zone. Your conversion rate may only be 20% right now. Get it to 30. If it's already 30, get it to 50. If it's at 50, why can't we get it to 70? We have people that need your help. These people need your help. They need your advice. They need your wisdom. This is not about just swinging the bat and seeing which ones you hit. This is about connecting with people. They never leave your database, by the way. Let me just touch on that very quickly. If we had, you guys know this, we're going to all be at Sales Mastery here very soon. And if Todd asked whatever's going to be there, 1,000 to 2,000 people in the room, if Todd Duncan asked them, give me some average numbers for what's in your database, what do you think from average loan originators, what do you think is the number that we would hear? How many people do you think average loan officers have in their database?
I was waiting for Deborah to go. How many did you say? I think a few hundred.
Yeah, I agree. The number I usually hear is 200 to 300. The amazing thing that I hear is from people who have been in this business, that have run their business like a business. They have 3,000 to 5,000 people in their database, some 10,000. Realtors that have 20,000 people in their database. You know, Kenny Klaus in Phoenix, Todd has got, I think he said 25,000 people in his database. And he was he a FedEx or a UPS driver? One of the two.
FedEx.
Okay, he was a FedEx driver before he became a realtor. And he just realized, I just need to keep feeding the goose, right? So your goose, you guys, is your database. And if all you've got are the people that you close loans for, you have missed something very important. You meet people every single day. You meet people at the grocery store, at fundraisers, at soccer games, at church. You meet people all the time. And if you start to, Todd, you've probably got a script around this, but Gary Keller called these just Mets. I don't know if you guys remember that phrase, just Mets, M-E-T-S, meaning I just met this person. But at some point they're going to ask you, so what do you do? And you're going to say, I'm in the real estate business, actually, which begs the question, tell me a little bit about your real estate situation. I don't care if you're in mortgage or real estate, you're still in the real estate business. And if you immediately turn it around, tell me a little bit about your real estate situation. They're going to tell you, well, we've been trying to buy a house, but we really can't. Or, it's time to move down. Well, actually, we're a little curious about a reverse mortgage. I don't know, but we're just going to wait. We think we're just going to wait things out. So whatever the answer is that you get, you go to the Google. You go to the Google and you Google that topic and you look for a great article, or you subscribe to Keeping Current Matters. Our friend David Childers running Keeping Current Matters. Everything you need to know for $30 a month is there in terms of communicating with realtors, borrowers, buyers, sellers, anybody in that group. You just need this data, you guys. And then when you start communicating with them, you say, so yeah, I've actually got something for you on that topic. Let me send it to you. How would you prefer that? Text, email? What's best for you? If you ask that question, hold your phone, they're going to give you something. They might give you Mickey Mouse at AOL.com. That's a pretty good tip. It's not their actual email address. But you know what? You've just added somebody to your database. And if you do that every single day and you create a habit around this is what I've seen that top producers have done so many times over the years. You just start attracting more and more people. This is not about buying leads, you guys. This is about organic, just natural conversation of meeting and moving and grooving with people. Now that we're out of the pandemic, we can kind of blink our eyes and look around and meet people. Add them into your database.
That's just being interested, right? That's just being interested. And you had a great script for it, right? Tell me a little bit about your real estate situation. I like that. I mean, that's just a great way to make them think and just say, gosh, you know what? All right. I send out stuff occasionally that you might find valuable. Do you mind if I add you into my database? If you're a HomeBot user, right? That's an opportunity for you to say, God, I get this great financial report that I love to send out. You mind if I send it to you? And just say, gosh, if you're not offended, don't worry, you can unsubscribe. But I really find that my clients find it valuable. And go down your forward piece after that you talked about. I think it's just such a great. We're so scared of it, but you're right. I don't want to plug, but the Win by Noon Real Estate Edition actually has database ads as a
there you go. Perfect.
In there, and it's funny because that's one of the ones that I've encouraged loan officers this year. We got blank ones, you get to write in what you want. And I'm like, yeah, you should be looking at database ads as well. Absolutely.
Every day.
Because most don't realize that you can upload a custom audience. So maybe it's all of your past buyers agents or listing agents, or if you're an agent on the call, maybe it's your buyers and sellers, and you can even run lookalike audiences. But something that I did, and it wasn't that long ago, Denise and I had talked about running an event, and she's going into all these how-tos in the process and keeps pushing it out. And I was like, I'm just going to make a quick Instagram post and add it to my story and just say, hey, if any of you are interested, my sister and I are thinking about putting on an event, just DM me your email address if you'd like to be added when we send out the invites. And guess what? I had all kinds of DMs with email addresses. And I'm like, I don't even know who half these people are. And I don't even have it all figured out yet. I'm like, but it's okay. We will figure it out, because now there's a little bit of pressure because I have all these people's email addresses, but I'm also putting them in my database. I don't buy lists. I don't believe in that.
Good for you.
I want to make sure that people are, wanting the content and they have the right to unsubscribe or unfollow or whatever. But you'd be amazed how easy it is to also build a database just by choosing to engage and connect with people on social, by liking and commenting and even story commenting on the right accounts, so that you're deepening and nurturing relationships by being a real human being and not a robot.
So good. Yeah, I love that so much. So if you're a realtor right now and you're on, and by the way, we do know that it's not pronounced realtor, just so that we know it's 2 syllables, not 3. It's a thing, right? You guys know it's a thing. It's hysterical to me. I have family members like, seriously? Come on. How long have I been around you? Anyway, if you're a realtor, if you're a real estate agent, you could do what Deb just described right now with, hey, have you got questions about what's happening in your neighborhood, in your subdivision, in your town around real estate? Because I'm talking to people all the time that have questions. We're putting an event together. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about that, DM me. Like, you could take that exact same idea. If you're a loan originator, you could do the same thing. Hey, are you waiting for the market to turn? Because if you are, you might miss something. You might miss a really great opportunity. I think again, let's bring up Josh one last time, Todd. He's such a great example of educating. If you watch his videos, and you guys should all follow him on social, like follow Denise, follow Dan Keller, follow Josh Metal. Just start watching what some of these people do, because what they're all doing, all of them, is they're educating. They're educating, and they're popping the balloons of confusion that the mass media is perpetuating right now about housing bubbles and recessions. And it's just, it's not accurate in terms of housing, and certainly the mortgage industry right now, the vast majority of it isn't. So I don't care if you're following Barry or Dan Rowich or wherever you get your stuff, but become an expert right now. It's absolutely critical. This was like optional probably the last few years. It's no longer optional. You've got to be really sharp. And I'll just share this is my philosophy, Todd. I think you already know this. I call it pouring white paint in my bucket every day. In order for me to stay relevant as a coach and to be meaningful to my clients, every single day, I have to be pouring white paint in my bucket. And what I mean by that is, that's watching a KCM video, that's reading the Wall Street Journal, that's reading Housing Wire. I have to intentionally and consciously go to Mortgage Coach. I have to go and find these stories, these relevant stories. I've got to be able to talk about 2-1 buy downs, right? The stuff that matters right now. If I don't know that, then I'm just stuck as a relic 20 years ago. So for you as a loan originator or as a realtor, if I can just encourage you to pour white paint in your bucket every single day so that you bring more value to the conversations with the people that you're having, when you ask the question, tell me about your real estate situation, because everybody's got one, even if they've been renting for 10 years, right? Like, that's a real estate situation. Let's have that conversation.
All right. So I don't want to go.
I get excited. I'm sorry, man. I get kind of fired up here.
I love how fired up you are. I want to make sure, we're going to be here for another 7 minutes. So don't go anywhere. Bill's got some more, but I want to make sure. So we still got some ideas that Bill's going to share with us, but I do want to make sure that we support you, right? In the old days, you were coming on to conversations like this because you were building your coaching pipeline, right? You always had a waiting list. You coached the best of the best. And after that was, of course, when I was long gone, because by that point, I got in because you only had one client apparently, but I always felt better, the old story, but you're too humble to ask. So I know we talked about your book, right? White Collar Warrior, certainly a great way to support you. I know you've got your podcast, All In, which, if you could see my laptop I'm talking to, it's got a big All In decal on the other side of it, and my water bottle sitting on the kitchen table with my All In decal. How do we find that? How else can we support you, Bill? Because now you're in the private sector, but what else can we as a community do to support you, sir?
Well, I really appreciate that. Those are the two ways. I mean, if you want to stay connected, first of all, like, let's make sure that we're friends on social. Like, this goes without saying. Buy the book. It's a great book. For the longest time, I was self-conscious about that, but I think I've got 102 5-star reviews now on Amazon. And it's always so exciting to me when I get one like, yes, there's somebody. It's so niche-y because it's sales and sales leadership. It's not specific to the mortgage or the real estate industries, but it's very specific. And because I'm such a huge patriot, it's got, just the best of the military woven throughout it. But yeah, grab a book for you and 10 for your referral partners. And for nothing, let's hang out in the podcast. My commitment to you is I will continue to showcase people that are all in. I am not interested in people that dabble. The real estate industry is full of dabblers. As long as I've been in the business, 30 years, there have always been people that get a real estate license. They'll show up for caravan. They'll get bagels and fruit in the office. But they're there like 2-3 hours a week and they stub their toe, 3-4 times a year on a transaction. Those are dabblers. They're dangerous. I think it's a bad idea. I am fascinated by people that are all in. And so hang out with me in the podcast and you'll meet a bunch of them. That's a lot of fun for me.
I just love that. All right. So we have less than 5 minutes till we're going to release you to your next coaching client. Is there one last nugget of gold that we can mine together before we have to let you go?
You actually said something in a video that I just saw you talking about, and because you've lived it, it has so much more meaning to me. And you asked the question, what are you doing consistently? And I think that's what's most important, you guys, is I think about what I know about Todd Bookspan, what I know about the top producers that we've already discussed specifically on this call, is they don't just take a good idea and do it for a week or two and then move to something else. They do the proven activities consistently. If you have a win by noon planner and you have identified the 3 to 5 key non-negotiable disciplines that you need to be doing every day, and you do those things consistently, your future is taken care of. Jim Rohn famously said to us, it's all about the law of averages and time and consistency. It's the law of averages and time and consistency. You don't have to be better than anybody else. You don't have to be the Jerry Rice. You just have to show up and keep doing it consistently. Cannot tell you how many people that I've coached that were making $1 million a year said, I don't really know how all this has happened, to be honest with you. I'm no smarter than anybody else. I just have done these things that you've told me to do, and it's worked out. So like Todd Bookspan tells us, what are you doing consistently? And if it's watching Netflix, good luck with that. I'll see you at Nordstrom when I buy a pair of shoes next year.
Oh, ouch. Well, you definitely should follow Bill on social, because you will get doses of reality, but it always comes from a place of love. All right, Deborah, what bow do you want to put on this time we've had with Bill?
Well, it kind of goes into what we talked about on Friday with Jonathan Roach about not getting too emotionally attached to instant gratification or results that may take time. Like right now, your ground or your soil, and I heard, Bill, you talked about this in your video, it may be hard and you need to water it, and then you need to dig, and then you need to plant seeds. And so don't allow 1 month of like, oh, I executed my planner perfectly for 1 month. So you expect something that's just not reasonable or rational. And then my fear for you all, because we do care about you guys a lot, is that you'll quit on the activities that we know, if done consistently and over time. I shared this Friday. I had a client that was their 672nd video in a row posting on social to then get to 60,000. They really wanted to break that 60,000 follower count, and it took 672 in a row. Guys, that's more than 2 years, right? 365 times 2. Regardless, you've got to be willing to do the work, and it's not going to be instant. There is no magic pill. I have a lot of people that will get on social and they think they're just going to get instant leads. You know what? If your process and system isn't in place, sometimes marketing is the worst strategy, because if your cooks aren't ready in the kitchen, all you're doing is spreading the word of your brand in a not a positive way. So you got to get the cooks in the kitchen right, have these conversations with them, find out what inspires them, what's their big why, truly ask the question, know if they're married or not, and then win by noon. It's really that simple. We just overcomplicate it to justify. That's my tough love.
Well, I just would say I'm super grateful for Deborah for asking Bill and for being here with me every Monday. I'm super grateful, Bill, for all that you've done to influence me as a friend and a client for the past 2 decades, and for pouring into our community when, you know, like I said, you're not here to promote anything or advertise and everything. I just want to say on behalf of everyone who's watched it today or is going to be watching the recording, thank you, because I just know it's a message that is needed, and you are a phenomenal person, leader, coach, and I am super grateful for you, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. Likewise. Thank you both for the opportunity. It's been fun hanging out with you. And I mean, other than the Nordstrom comment, I think we did okay. Yeah.
I think that was icing on the top of the cake. And unfortunately, hopefully not true for anyone who's watching this, but, you know, unfortunately, maybe for someone who didn't. So thank you again, Bill and Deborah, and all you for being part of it. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you hit that like and that subscribe button. We appreciate it. And let's make sure that we support Coach Bill going forward. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Appreciate you guys.